the whole complexion of the book changed in November.
Seriously.
I mean, it really did. And when we think about the devices we've constructed to make big collective decisions, like who should be the next president of the United States, the Electoral College is an example of that. And I wrote a piece for the Times after the election, we're talking about the kind of combined injustice of big urban states being underrepresented in the Electoral College, but also because they're big urban states where they're generating all the income, they're actually paying more taxes than they're getting back from the federal government. So big urban states like California are actually, the kind of the blue states are weirdly the true heirs to the Tea Party in a funny way, because the actual original Tea Party protesters, because they have less representation and more taxation than the red states. And that's partially because we have this system in the Electoral College. It just doesn't quite make sense, and we're kind of stuck with that decision architecture as a society. There are some plans and ideas about how you could change it, but it's a 31 to change. So there's a kind of the political context of it. And actually, I may end up writing this piece in the short term because it needs to be made, but it's something that we should just be saying about Trump's inner circle and his cabinet. The lack of diversity in that cabinet, just the number, just alone the number of men, the proportion of men compared to the last, even the Bush administration, it's really a lot of guys. And to make to remind people, like, this is not only a cabinet that doesn't look like America, which is an objectionable thing too, but it's also a recipe for terrible decision making. And we need to understand that this is not a way to kind of build the kind of inner circle to make those important choices. But the broader question is, how do we make those big collective decisions? And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently, there have been a couple of calls in recent years. One more Long Now folks, Danny Hillis made an argument. I think was it a Long Now talk or a TED talk about kind of internet making the new internet? It was a TED talk, yeah. So basically, Danny was making the argument that the internet is, as it was originally designed, is much more vulnerable than we realize, and that with the kind of right kind of attack or some kind of failure, like the whole thing could catastrophically fail for reasons that he is much better explaining it than I am. So he was saying we really need to have kind of a backup internet. We need to kind of design a different architecture. But he made this kind of argument. And then some of you may have seen Walter Isaacson made this argument right after the election, thinking about all the things that seem to have gone wrong over the last preceding 6 months, saying that it's really time for a new internet. A lot of the decisions that were made in the early days of the internet were based around the needs of academic researchers who had no idea that they were building a communications platform for the entire world. And we now understand that this is a much more momentous thing, and that we should go back and kind of redesign it and do it right. Put aside the question of whether that's true or not, whether we think we need to design a new internet. That's a whole other debate. But let's say we did decide that. At this point in time, how would we decide as a society what features should go in that platform? So we would be fully aware now, in a way that the original internet architects were not, and the way that Tim Berners-Lee was not, that the choices we were making were going to have momentous kind of downstream consequences. And they would change everything from politics to the finances of the newspaper business to online trolls and cybersecurity and a million other things, right? So the consequences of the choice are huge, and it's clearly a global choice. So how would we go about, what would be the architecture of making a choice like that? And it is very, as Larry Lessig has argued for many years now, code is like law, right? It functions in that kind of world very much like law. And so when we design a kind of standardized platform that lies beneath everything, we're making choices almost as profound as the founders making the choices about designing the Electoral College. So how would we do that? And it's funny, after Isaacson wrote that piece saying we need to build an internet too, I sent him an email. It's like, I thought that was really interesting. So I'm thinking about the decision architecture and how would you do that? What would you do? And he was like, yeah, you're right, you can't.
No, but you actually are very positive that there would be a way to try these new techniques in a process to do it, right?
I started sketching it out in the book. I'm curious what people think.